Andrew and Vivian Hultman allowed their child Maureen to go out at night to celebrate her first paycheck. She was reminded to come home before 2 in the morning. However, around 5 o'clock, Andrew was awakened by a knock on the door from the village guard. This was to inform them of a sad tragedy. Jussi Olavi Leino invited Roland Chapman, Maureen Hultman, and their other friends to his house in Forbes Park, Makati, Philippines. When midnight struck, they decided to continue their party at Roxy's and Vintage, pubs often frequented by students from the International School, Manila. Several more hours passed, and due to the joy of that evening, they didn't realize that it was already the early hours of the following day. The group of friends decided to return to Yusi's house to eat, and afterwards, Maureen asked Jussi and Roland to drop her off at her house. As they entered the village, Maureen requested Jussi to stop about a block away from her home. She wanted to walk the remaining distance because she didn't want her parents to know that she arrived home in the early hours of the morning. While they were walking, a light-colored Mitsubishi box-type Lancer suddenly stopped in the middle of the road. A man got out of the car and said, "Who are you? Show me your ID." Wanting to comply, Jussi handed over his ID, but the man abruptly snatched the wallet from Yusi's hand without even looking at its contents. Roland, who was still inside the car, was unaware of the unfolding tragedy. Upon seeing the incident, Roland walked towards the man who was causing trouble. "Why are you bothering us?" he asked. In an instant, the man shoved Roland, quickly retrieved a gun from his clothing, and without hesitation, fired it at Roland. The bullet struck Roland in the upper part of his body. Holding his wound, Roland asked the man, "Why did you shoot me?" Then he slowly collapsed onto the cold pavement. Jussi hurriedly went to Roland's side to help his friend. However, the man aimed the gun at him and said, "Do you want trouble?" Jussi shook his head and was ordered by the man to sit on the sidewalk. Startled, Maureen couldn't speak, but when she heard the gunshot, she couldn't help but scream, "Oh my God, he has a gun! He's going to kill us! Help!" In response, the man turned his gun towards Maureen. She rushed towards the man and, driven by the desperation to survive, she circled around the man's car in an attempt to get away. This lasted only a few minutes, and eventually, the man caught up with Maureen and forcefully seated her next to Jussi. The man bravely turned away, almost mockingly. Then, without warning or remorse, he raised his gun and shot Jussi. The bullet hit his upper lip, and he fell to the ground. Despite the pain, he continued to fight to stay alive. And amidst the agony, he witnessed another gunshot echoing through the air, and Maureen, who once illuminated their lives, collapsed beside him. Hello and welcome to my channel, where I will be sharing with you gruesome and chilling stories about murder cases, psychological thrillers, and other mysteries from around the world. So, if this type of content interests you, make sure to watch until the end of this video, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. Roland John Chapman was the son of a communication officer at the United States Embassy in the Philippines. He was described as a kind and gentle friend and son. He was only 21 years old when he passed away. Maureen Hultman, on the other hand, was a 16-year-old Filipino student at the International School, Manila. Her adoptive father was a Swedish national, and he legally adopted Maureen when he married her mother in 1981. She was described as an intelligent and joyful person. She was shot in the left side of her forehead, just above her eyebrow. Based on X-rays and CT scans, small fragments of the bullet were found to have penetrated her brain, with a larger piece lodged beneath her right jawbone. She underwent 3 surgeries in an attempt to alleviate the damages caused by the gunshot. However, Maureen's condition remained critically severe. According to the doctors, if she were to survive, it's likely that she would lose her eyesight in both eyes, and would struggle to live independently. There was no hope for Maureen to return to a normal state. Due to the severity of her injuries, she couldn't endure any longer. 47 days after the tragic incident, Maureen passed away on October 17, 1991. Jussi Olavi Leino, 20 years old and hailing from Finland, was just beginning a new chapter in his life as he pursued his ambition of becoming a professional pilot at the Manila Aero Club. The bullet entered through his left temple and hit his upper jaw and front teeth. Fragments of the bullet pierced his palate and tongue. The doctors had to reconstruct parts of his tongue to address some of the injuries. However, despite their efforts, Jussi still struggled to speak. On that fateful night, Jussi noticed 3 individuals who witnessed the events. They were Domingo Florese and Agrippino Cadenas, both private security guards, and Vicente Mangubat, a stay-in driver. They were occupied with their duties when they suddenly heard the sound of the first gunshot. They saw Roland Chapman lying on the road, Jussi Leino sprawled on the sidewalk, and Maureen Hultman currently under attack by the gunmen. Due to his proximity to the assailant's vehicle, Cadenas and Mangubat both had a clear view of his face. Florese, who was further away, didn't manage to see the gunman's face, but he noted the vehicle used for the getaway. After the tragedy, Mangubat sought help from passing cyclists to report this incident to the village security officers. The security guards quickly arrived and transported Maureen and Jussi to the nearest hospital. The involvement of 2 separate investigative agencies, the Philippine National Police in coordination with the Makati Police Department and the National Bureau of Investigation, led to a complex and controversial situation in apprehending the perpetrator. The clash between them raised concerns about the integrity of the investigation. During the initial police investigation, they discovered that the suspect's vehicle was a box-type Mitsubishi Lancer with a plate number 566. By cross-referencing the list of registered vehicles in the village, they identified 2 individuals who owned such vehicles. The first Lancer was registered under the name of Jose Montano with plate number PKX 566. The second Lancer was linked to Claudio Teehankee Jr. with plate number PDW 566. The NBI investigated the Lancer owned by Jose Montano, which he had sold to a company. They questioned both owners and found out that this was not the vehicle used in the getaway. The NBI also interviewed the 2 security guards who witnessed the events. The first security guard willingly provided a statement, but the second one was initially afraid of the gunman and didn't want to get involved in the turmoil. However, due to the NBI's promise of protection, he agreed to share information. On July 16, the second security guard described the gunman's vehicle as a light gray box-type Lancer with a plate number PDW 566. He confirmed that it was not the white Lancer owned by Jose Montano. He positively identified Claudio Teehankee Jr. as the gunman from a set of 10 photographs shown to him by the NBI leader. Based on the identification made by the second security guard and other gathered evidence, the NBI swiftly applied for a search warrant for the silver metallic gray 1983 Mitsubishi Lancer owned by Claudio Teehankee Jr. with plate number PDW 566. The court promptly authorized the NBI to seize the suspect's vehicle. So along with his team members, they proceeded to Claudio Teehankee Jr.'s residence. While he was not present at that time, they informed his mother about the warrant and extended an invitation for Teehankee Jr. to come to the NBI office. Claudio Teehankee Jr. is the son of the former Chief Justice Claudio Teehankee Sr., who took an oath under former President Corazon Aquino. He studied law at one of the prestigious universities in the Philippines and later worked as a lawyer before becoming a bank executive. It's evident that he comes from an influential family. According to Teehankee Jr., he voluntarily went to the police station where he was invited by the police chief and a major to inquire about the ownership of the Lancer car parked at his mother's house. Teehankee Jr. willingly cooperated and denied any involvement in the crime. In an effort to clear his name, he also voluntarily underwent a paraffin test, which showed no traces of gunpowder nitrates on his hands. Afterwards, using a Mercedes-Benz, Claudio Teehankee Jr. left the police station along with the major and a police officer. They proceeded to the NBI office where he was accompanied by the 3 Makati police officers and his sibling. He mentioned that he had already been investigated by the police and had undergone a paraffin test. He also stated that his car was broken and was just parked at his mother's house. Due to the late hour, the NBI investigation was postponed and scheduled for the next day. The next day, the director of the NBI intensified the questioning of Claudio Teehankee Jr. after they had breakfast at the Manila Hotel. Teehankee Jr. maintained that he had no involvement in the crime, but the director conveyed to him that there were witnesses who could potentially identify him. Teehankee Jr. was identified in a lineup at the NBI office, where one of the security guards pointed him out as the gunman. After this, he was taken to the location where the shooting occurred. There, he was identified by Jussi, who had just been released from the hospital, as the gunman from another lineup. Jussi requested that they remove their glasses before identifying Teehankee Jr. After this process of identification, the NBI brought Teehankee Jr. back to their office and prepared murder and double frustrated murder cases against him at the Department of Justice. During the inquest, bail was not recommended for the murder case, leading to Teehankee Jr.'s detention at the NBI. Later on, one count of frustrated murder was elevated to murder due to Maureen's death. On the afternoon of July 23, the NBI again asked the driver if he could identify the gunman. 12 photographs were shown to him and he chose Teehankee Jr.'s photo as the perpetrator. He provided an official statement, and the following day, he was summoned to the NBI to identify the gunman in a lineup at the NBI director's office, with members of the media present. Claudio Teehankee Jr. declined to participate in the lineup. His lawyers argued that any identification should occur within the court, since the cases against him were already filed. The NBI rejected their request and proceeded with a lineup in the office where Teehankee Jr. was present. Without hesitation, the driver recognized him as the gunman. Teehankee Jr. denied the accusation that he was the gunman. According to him, he was at home sleeping when the crime occurred, and his household staff could testify to his alibi. He denied knowing the victims or the witnesses. Although he admitted owning a vehicle similar to the one used in the shooting, he claimed that it had been parked in her mother's garage since May 1991. To prove his alibi, his child testified that he had used the car, a Lancer with plate number PDW 566, to go to school from May 1989 to February 1991. During this time, he was involved in an accident where he collided with a bicycle and 2 parked trucks, resulting in the death of the bicycle rider and the damage to the vehicle. He had the car repaired and then took it to his grandmother's house in Makati. He was not allowed to use the car again. In an attempt to shift the blame, the defense called Anders Hultman, Maureen's father, as a hostile witness. The defense tried to establish that he was the gunman based on a newspaper report where Maureen referred to the gunman as Daddy. Anders made sure to clarify that Maureen didn't speak Tagalog and didn't call him Daddy. He also testified about the VIP treatment the accused received in jail. Teehankee Jr. was allowed to be confined in an upscale hospital in Makati after complaining of insomnia and diarrhea. He was accompanied to the hospital by the mayor of Makati, and the room where he stayed was just 2 floors above the room where the youngest victim, Maureen Hultman, was in critical condition. A police officer testified about his interviews with a security guard and household helper. The security guard saw the gunman and the vehicle, but he couldn't provide a complete plate number. The household helper claimed to have heard one of the victims pleading with the gunman, "Daddy, please don't shoot me. Please, please." However, she didn't disclose her name or testify in court. The police officer also reported that the security guard did not identify the accused as the gunman and the color of the vehicle was unclear. The testimony raised doubts about identification and evidence documentation. A forensic chemist testified about the negative results of the paraffin test conducted on Teehankee Jr.'s hands. The test was performed more than 72 hours after the shooting incident, which is the appropriate time frame to detect nitrate residue on the hands of a shooter. The negative results suggest that Teehankee Jr. had not recently fired a gun. The defense presented 7 newspaper reporters as witnesses to substantiate their claims regarding the investigation of the shooting incident. The reporters identified various newspaper articles that they had written or contributed to, based on information from various sources such as the NBI, CIS, Makati Police, and the Hultman family. The newspaper articles contained different or speculative details about the gunman, the vehicle, the motive, and the identification of Teehankee Jr. as a suspect. The defense also attempted to demonstrate bias and pressure displayed by some parties in favor of the prosecution. The head of the Forensic Chemistry Division of the NBI testified that gunshot residue on hands could be removed through activities such as washing, sweating, or putting vinegar. He also stated that the paraffin test is not reliable and should only be used as a supplementary evidence. The driver testified again for the prosecution and confirmed that he recognized Teehankee Jr. as the gunman at the police station. He also stated that a police officer told him that he didn't need to sign his statement. The defense lawyers did not attend the hearing and stated that they had no further evidence to present. The prosecution submitted the cases and the petition for bail. The court approved the request and gave both sides 10 days to submit their memoranda.
I, the accused Claudio Teehankee Jr. guilty. There is a doubt of the offense of...
The trial court found Teehankee Jr. guilty of killing Chapman and Hultman for the crime of murder and of attempting to kill UZ for the crime of frustrated murder. He was sentenced to 2 terms of reclusion perpetua and 1 term of prisión mayor. He was also ordered to pay various amounts for damages, attorney's fees, and expenses to the families of the victims and to Leino. His petition for bail was denied. Teehankee Jr. obtained a new lawyer, and they filed a motion for new trial, alleging that there were numerous errors in the first trial, not only in the bail petition but also in the entirety of the case. However, the motion for a new trial was ultimately denied.
I was already a prisoner of the Philippine government.
Hanggang ngayon, you are still claiming you're totally innocent.
Yes, I'm totally innocent.
The case of People of the Philippines versus Claudio J. Teehankee Jr. clarifies issues of senseless killing and the privileges of the wealthy in the Philippines. The effort to reduce media coverage and the allegation of bias suggest that the affluent and influential could receive special treatment. The belief that certain individuals might evade justice due to the societal position is an alarming aspect of our justice system.
How old are you now, Maureen? I'm 16. I'll be turning 17 in September.
He came home one